To begin, we have our pelvic girdle, which is located here. This girdle consists of the hip bones, the sacrum, and the coccyx. The pelvis provides attachment for muscles that balance and support the trunk and move the legs, hips, and the trunk. Then we come up here and we have our pectoral girdle, the skeletal framework that provides attachment for the forelimbs or pectoral fins. It usually consists of the scapulas and clavicles. It functions by connecting the upper limb to the spinal column through a series of muscles in the shoulder and upper back. In our pectoral girdle, we have our clavicle, which is located here. Our acromial end would be the farther away, and our sternal end would be here. Moving on to our scapula, we have our cargoid process here, our subscapular fossa here, our glenoid cavity would be located here, our spine would be located here, our acromion would be located here, our supraspinous fossa would be located here, our infraspinous fossa would be located here, our sternoclavicular joint would be located here, and our acromyoclavicular joint would be located here. Next, we have the arm. The humerus bone would be here. The head of the humerus would be up here. The greater tubercle would be here. The lesser tubercle would be here. The deltoid tuberosity would be here. The medial epicondyle would be here. The lateral epicondyle would be here. The coronoid fossa would be here, which receives the coronoid process of the ulna during the flexion of the forearm. The capitulum would be here, which articulates with the head of the radius. The trochlea would be here, articulates with the trochlear notch of the ulna and the forearm. Back here we have the olecranon fossa. The olecranon process of the ulna rests when the elbow is extended. Moving on to the forearm, we have the ulna here, the olecranon here, the coronoid process here, and the styloid process here. The radius is this bone. The head of the radius is here, the radial tuberosity is here, and the styloid process is here. Next, we move on to our carpus. In our proximal row, we have our scaphoid, our lunate, our triquetral, and our pisiform here. In our distal row, we have our trapezium, our trapezoid, our capitate, and our hamate here. The bones that form the wrist joint and connect with the forearm are the scaphoid and the lunate. They connect with the radius. The bones that form a joint with the pollox, which is our thumb, is our trapezium. Our metacarpals are these, and our phalanges are the last three bones in each finger here. Moving on to the pelvic girdle, we have our coxal bone. The three bones that fuse during development of the skeleton to form the coxal bone are our ilium here, our pubic bone here, and our ischium here. Our acetabulum would be here, our pubic symphysis would be here, our obturator foramen would be here, our iliac crest would be here, our anterior superior iliac spine would be here, our iliac fossa would be here, our greater sciatic notch would be here, our ischial spine would be located back here, and our ischial tuberosity would be located here. Moving on to our femur here, we have the head of our femur here, our greater trochanter here, our lesser trochanter here, our adductor tubercle here, our medial epicondyle here, our lateral epicondyle here, our medial condyle is here, our lateral condyle is here, and our patella is here. Moving on to our tibia here, we have our medial condyle here, our lateral condyle here, our tibial tuberosity here, our medial malleolus here, our proximal tibiofiliar joint here, and our distal tibiofiliar joint here. Next, we have our fibula, which is here. The head of our fibula is located here, and our lateral malleolus is here. Moving on to our tarsus, we have our calcaneus back here. We have our cuboid here. We have our navicular here. We have our medial cuneiforms here, our intermediate cuneiforms here, our lateral cuneiforms here, our metatarsus here, our phalanges here, our hallux would be our big toe here, and lastly our talus here. Our talus articulates with our tibia, our fibula, our calcaneus, and our navicular.